Hi, it's your Haskell girl Tuula showing off what I have been working in a past week or so. So um, I guess it's easier to just show. I have been writing a tile engine. This is called Space Garden, the demo program that I'm doing. And this uh, level that you are seeing here, it's actually going to be the title screen of the game, but I'm going to use the tile engine for displaying the title screen too. So there's a nice little parallax scroller on the background, and then there's some tiles on top of that. It doesn't do anything else than that yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm using a program called Tile Editor, Tile Map Editor, and here's the title screen that I have been working on. And I just export this in a JSON format and then load in the program and then just display it. The current thing that I have been working, if we zoom a little bit closer, is the animations. Like this crash that is animated here isn't visible in the game yet, but that's the next thing I'm working on. But these two layers, uh, there's the plants layer, then there's the foreground and background. The idea is that I'm having is that the foreground layer, this one, shows basically where the player can move. If this were the level, they could just walk on these surfaces. Background is just to add some nice details, and when the player walks, they will walk in front of the background. And the plants is just some detailing. I'm not sure if I'm going to write one or two or even more plant layers in the game so that you could have a short grass in the foreground and taller grass or bushes on the background, and the player could be moving in between of those. And I really like the tile editor because it can export in the JSON format. If we have a look at here, here's the title map. The format is pretty straightforward. There's layers that contains those layers, and they have the data that is just a array, basically just a list of um, tile IDs. And these tile IDs, I mean, of course, there's other things too here, like the name of the layer and what kind of layer it is, and size, width, and height. And the tile sets that I'm using are defined here. And each tile set is just if you look at the foreground tiles, it's basically just tells you which file has been loaded, what's the size of the uh, image that has been loaded, amount of the tiles there is, and how many columns there are. With this information, you can figure out if you need a tile number 5, you multiply the tile width by, let's see, 2, yeah, by 2, and height by 1, because it's on the second row. It's the second element on the second row. But the complication here that I had originally is that if I'll show, here's this one, because this level is using 3 tile sets. Let's zoom, like there's the grass, there's the foreground tiles, and then there's the background tiles. This is all just developer art. I'm going to work on those at some point to make them actually look pretty. So obviously in the background tiles, the tile number 0 is here, and in the foreground tiles, the tile number 0 is here, and grass tiles, tile number 0 is here. But if you plop something on here, you have to be able to tell which 0 tile you actually mean. And how that is done is that if we look at the, for example, background tiles, there's a, is there, Sorry. Okay, it's not visible here, but we can peek here. So foreground tiles doesn't say anything about. It just says that this is the size and how many tiles there are. But here we have this. This is the level file. Here we have the first GID, first global ID, saying that the foreground tiles start from the 1, background tiles start with the 10, and grass tiles start with the 19. So if we scroll here and see that there's a 17, for example, we know that, or basically we have to calculate that it's bigger than these two, smaller than this one, so it has to be this one, 17, and then we subtract 10 from the 17, so we get 7, and then we know that it's the 17 in this level, or this map is actually 7th tile of the background tiles. So you have to do a bit of arithmetic there, because you put in your game or program you could have multiple maps and they could be using different tile sets. So, and they could be sharing the tile sets between each other. So that's why I understood the first GID is mentioned here and not in the tiles tileset file, which of course means that when you are loading the data and figuring out what textures to use where, you have to do a little bit of preparation there. And the loading, now that we are here, is if you want to render map like this, for example this background layer, you need this layer data. Then you need to figure out that, hey, we are using these tile sets. You need to load these tile sets. And if you load the foreground tiles, then you find that, okay, this tile set uses this texture for the tiles. So you have to, for this single map, we have to load the actual map file, 3 tile sets, and 3 textures, because those are using all of those are using different textures. So 7 files, and then we have to keep track of them in the program. And I took a little bit shortcuts here. Like here's the loading part. I'm using SDL to load the data. I hard coded the loading for now. I haven't had time to actually make the text loading dynamic. This is originally because originally I wasn't going to use tiled maps and editor, but just have a single texture for per level. But here I'm loading the textures, making a textures record where I'm storing them. There's the stars, foreground, background, grass, and then there's another function for freeing the reserved resources. And how I'm using this is that here's the main function. I'm using a bracket to load the textures is for initializing, free texture is for freeing the resources, and in between. So first it runs the load textures to load the textures, and then it runs the run application, this one, where it is passing the textures, renderer and window, and when this one finishes or when there's an exception, then it runs the free resources function. And in the run part, here is the another part of the hard coding. This is the startup basically for the program. Here I'm creating a textures list where I'm saying that, okay, this foreground tiles PNG corresponds to that texture FG that is from the up textures. Up, I'm using Rio, so up is that global configuration, and there I have the textures, so I can just say that FG is the textures foreground of up textures. So if you have used Rio before, this is probably very straightforward to you. But anyway, here I'm building the textures list, mapping that this texture matches to this file. And then I'm loading the tile sets, and then I'm loading the tile, the maps here. And the load map, okay, load tile sets here. This is actually already dynamic. It looks into that assets tile sets directory and loads every file there. I'm assuming that they are only JSON files, so that's why I'm just going to use the read file binary and then decode strict it. But I have to carry the file path and the tile set that has been loaded together, or error message if there was an error message. So that's how I get the array where I have the file paths and the corresponding decoded JSON file. And when I have those, then I can load the maps with the load map function. And here's of course more to-dos. And here I'm just loading the here. So I'm just reading the binary file and then decoding it. I have a JSON from JSON instances for all those things. And when I have loaded, at this point I have the list of textures with corresponding file paths. I have the tile sets with corresponding file paths. Then I have single map file, and then I have to massage all that data into the level. Originally I was using that tiled map to do the rendering, but then I figured that if I'm using multiple tile sets, I probably want to do some work beforehand. And yes, because the thing is that for my map, this is the map that is loaded, tiled map. There's the width, height, then there's the layers and tile sets. And these actually links to the tile sets. So these only have that first global ID and the file path where you can find that. And then there's the actual tile set that has the columns count and the path to the texture and the name of the layer and the tile count. Name of the tile set and then the tile count. Because from this information I can figure out which part of the texture I need to render at what point of the screen. But if I were to do this on the rendering loop, there would be a lot of repetitive work. Like I would have to figure out that I want to place the tile number 17. Where does the tile number 17 come from? It comes from this tile set. I would have to get that tile set and then figure out, okay, which texture it is using and grab that texture and then count where I can find it. And that's too much work. I don't want to do that on the rendering loop. So I'm front loading my work a little bit, and I have a thing called level. So this has the width, height, foreground, background. These are the layers, because in the tiled editor I can have multiple layers. I can build really complex things there, but on the program I don't want to do lookups and ask that I want a layer with this specific name. Is it there or is it there not? And handle all the special cases. I want to do all that work beforehand. So I'm constructing the level, And here when I'm handling the level, I know that I have a foreground, I have a background. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reached this point of the program. And then I have the level textures. And this is the thing that I do to optimize lookups a little bit more. Like there's the lower bound and upper bound. These are just the IDs, column count, how many columns are of tiles there are in the texture, and then there's the actual texture. And this lower bound and upper bound information I'm calculating from the that tileset information in the map. That first global ID goes into here, and here comes the first global ID plus the tile count of that specific tileset. So when I'm rendering a tile number 17 on a level of this one, I don't have to do that much of work anymore. I can just find which entry in this list of textures is the one where the lower bound is smaller or equal with the tile ID and upper bound is bigger than the ID. I can just use this information to quickly find the texture, and then I can just subtract the lower bound from the tile ID and use that information with the column count to count which portion of the text I need to render. So here's the render main menu. This is the thing that is rendering the scene that you saw in the beginning. So here I'm just rendering the parallax, and then I'm rendering the map, and I'm using the this is I have menu data is the state of the program when we are in the main menu. It has maps, and there's the default maps title, because I'm I'm not 100% sure, but I have a feeling that while the player is playing the game, they might modify the map. And if you start a new game, I want to have the intact map at that point. So you can start a new game with a completely clean, unmodified map. So that's why I'm holding in these default maps. There's the title map, and then there's the actual play map. Anyway, this is the rendering one. And then we present the renderer, which actually flips the data on the screen. But the render map function here, like more to-dos. So I'm just rendering the background layer and foreground layer. And more hard coding, we are just calling this render tile function to each spot on the grid. So this is the width and this is the height. So we are looping through those, calling the render tile with the specific tile that we are taking from here layer, and then this is the layer that we are rendering, and here we are accessing to specific element. Because the layer is just a vector, we have to calculate which points in that vector. We don't have a two-dimensional array here. I'm using unboxed vector here to speed up the lookup a little bit. I tried that with a list, and it doesn't make any difference really in this case, because there's a 180. Well, there's something between 180 and 200 tiles to render. So the lookups aren't going to take that long in such a small data. But if I had a bigger scrolling screen, then the lookups would be would start to be lower in using a list. With the unboxed vector, the lookup at the beginning of the array or vector and at the end is the same. It's really fast. Of course, there's a little drawbacks, like you cannot place any dynamic objects there. You have to, when you are initializing this vector that I'm using for the level data, I have to know the size of that vector in advance, and I cannot place objects or data that might have a dynamic size. So I have to actually know exactly how much memory this is going to take. But because I'm using cint there, it doesn't matter. And the render tile is for if there's a 0, I'm just going to do nothing there. And if it's something else, then I have to do a little bit work. This is the thing that I was talking. So from that textures, I'm going to find the one which lower and upper bound falls into the correct range. So our tile ID is between these numbers. Then we have a match. If we don't have a match, then we just log error. This is funny, of course. If we have an update function that is updating the screen multiple times in a second, hopefully multiple times in a second, and placing almost 200 tiles there, and there's something wrong there, and it's logging errors, it's going to slow down. You are going to see. I tested this, and you see the performance drop at that point. The parallax scroll is starting to lag a lot at that point. But it doesn't matter, because at that point there's something wrong anyway, and I should be figuring out what's the problem with the program at that point. So, but the happy part is that we have actually managed to find our texture. So we take our renderer that is used to render stuff on the screen. We are counting the quotient and reminder here. So this is because we have the tile ID 17, for example. We are going to subtract the lower bound 10 in our example, so we get the 7. And then we are going to use the quote reminder with the column count. So I think there was 3 columns in that. So 7 divided by 3 is 2. So Q is 2, and then we have 1 left off. And from that we know that we can build a rectangle which upper coordinate, upper left corner is the 1 times 16, so 16, and the y coordinate is 2 times 16, so 36. 32. So 16, 32 is our coordinates, and we are going to take a 16 times 16 piece of that texture. And then we are just copy that this one is rendering. There's a alignment. This one is just rendering it on the screen. So using the renderer texture that we got from here, source that we calculated from here, and placing it on the screen on the x and y coordinate times 16, and the size is 16. We have to keep the sizes the same, otherwise we are stretching our tiles. And we can do it this simple because we are rendering. We know that in this specific case the level is about the size of the screen and there's no scrolling involved. If there were scrolling involved, then we would have to calculate this. We would have to add or subtract info from these coordinates based on the position of our camera. Well, imaginary camera, there isn't really a camera, but our viewport. We would have to figure out what part of the screen we are actually outputting stuff. And this is how it's done. And this is what I have been working. So it's not that special at all, but I think it's a pretty nifty start. There's a nice parallax scroll. There's a tile engine that handles multiple layers. Loading is there's quite a bit of hard-coded things there, but since this is the first tile engine I'm writing, this is good enough. I'm going to keep working on this, and I'm probably going to work on the animations and little more layers and stuff like that for a little bit more. I think it was a nice idea to use the tile engine to do the title screen, because then I can work on the tile engine and test it really quickly by just starting the program, and then I can see what's going on. Does it render everything correctly? And because I'm using the tiled editor here, I can make changes really easily. Like if we wanted to build a, say, tower here, we would just put it something like this, maybe, perhaps. I can just build things here quickly and test out things. How does that look? Oops, like this, and then, well, I can place grass there too, but it doesn't get animated in the program. And I save it, then I can just go here, start this thing again, and hey, it's not displaying it. Yeah, because I was editing the plants layer. So let's see, we do maybe like this, and then we go to the foreground layer, like that. Does it look like plants? Okay, that is okay. Foreground looks reasonable, background looks reasonable. Of course, now we have a block here that if we had a player, they couldn't go past that one, but we don't have a player, so we don't have to worry about it. And we can start it and we see that, hey, we have our block is here. So it's really quick to test things and see how they look and how things affect to each other and all that. And that is always nice. It's always really nice to have some sort of quick feedback so that you can see what is going on and how are your program working and how your changes are working, like that. But yeah, I think next time I want to work on maybe on those animations. I don't really know how to do those animations yet, because here's my grass file. So there's 3 frames, but if we look at the animation, there's actually four frames, like we are using that one, that one, that one, that one. Here's the animation, here's the frame. So I think I wrote it in that this one is displayed for 200 milliseconds. This is displayed for 200 milliseconds. This one is displayed for 400 milliseconds, and then this one is displayed for 200 milliseconds, and then it loops from the beginning. So I don't know if I want to read this definition in my program and use that to render it, or if I just do something else. Maybe I just have textures on my tiles in a way that I have this, this, this again here, and then this again here. So I would just have a strip of frames in my texture, and then the program will just render them one by one with a fixed speed, because that's a simple to handle in the program. And I probably will do the animation in a way that everything is in sync anyway. Like if I, or rather when I have grass here and then taller grass and plants and stuff like that, maybe some flowing water, all that will be animated at the same speed so that they are and they are in a sync. It will look a bit funny maybe. It will look a little bit like old NES games used to look, or I mean they still look the same. They haven't changed anything, but I think that's a easiest way of doing things, and I'm a big fan of make when learning something new, just simplifying things as much as you can, and then simplifying things even more, because there's so many things to learn anyway, so you don't want to complicate things too much. So probably going to make animation in a way that everything is in sync and as easy as possible. But that's for the basically for the next week. Going to work on the animations and maybe more layers and maybe even draw some more animations. I'm terrible at making art, so this isn't. I'm dreading the moment I have to draw the player sprite. Maybe I'm just going to make it a cube and say that this is the cube person who is walking around, and that's why it looks like a cube. Okay, but I'll get back into coding then.